The way I see it, we've entered into something that I call the Greater Depression, period of time when most people's standard of living is going to drop significantly. Of course, that's been true for the last 50 years. The standard of living, in many ways, has been going down significantly, but it's been buttressed by borrowing, which is living off of capital other people have saved in the past and mortgaging your further production in the future. It's ameliorated that trend a little bit, and by increases in technology and so forth. I think we're in for some very rough times. Let me put it that way. That's one thing. I think that we have a high likelihood of experiencing real chaos in a number of areas, certainly in the political realm here in the United States. So that's the second thing. Third thing is I could point out that relative to other areas of where you can put your capital, stocks, bonds, real estate, commodities are very, very cheap right now. Before 1933, people walked around with gold coins in their pocket. The dollar was exchangeable by the central bank at a fixed rate. You could change your gold for $20 per ounce. So I'm a believer that gold is money. You can use lots of things as money. You can use seashells. During World War II in prison camps, they used cigarettes as money. But for lots of reasons, gold has always been, of all the 92 naturally occurring elements, the best money. And at this point, in a world that's absolutely overloaded with debt, courtesy of the central banks of the world, and they're redoubling the amount of debt as we speak, there's going to be a collapse of the currency systems. And gold, which is $2,500 an ounce as we speak, unfortunately has the potential to go a lot higher. I've been long gold for decades and never sold an ounce. I've used it as a savings vehicle, sometimes as a vehicle to speculate with, but mainly as just a savings vehicle, and it's treated me very well. There are reasons to be bullish on silver, bearish on silver. The fundamentals are this. We don't know exactly, but there's probably about 7 billion ounces of gold above ground that have been mined since the dawn of history. About 7 billion, as best as we can figure. And the amount of gold that's being added by new mining, it varies, but let's say it's about 90 million ounces per year. All the gold that's ever been mined is still above ground in storage. Silver, all the silver that's ever been mined is used in an industrial way. So that's a big difference. There aren't inventories of silver. In silver, it's about 1 billion new ounces per year. That's another difference. It's a much more volatile commodity to start with because it's a much smaller market. Right now, let's say silver is about $30 an ounce. Historically, silver has always been about 17 or 18 to 1. It was fixed at that price against gold by the U.S. government. And fixing the ratio between anything, it's called price controls. It's a bad idea. It never works. So now the ratio between gold and silver says something like 80 to 1. All right, this is all theory, some miscellaneous facts. What do I think about silver? People stop buying gold and silver out of prudence, which is the main reason people that buy it have been buying it, and they buy it out of fear. A dollar put into the silver market will have a vastly bigger effect than a dollar put into the gold market for the reasons that I've detailed. And you could see silver at $200 an ounce. In fact, in real terms, the past high of silver, it's hit $50 an ounce twice in the past. It could go to $200 easily. I've been saying for years that EU is a totally artificial and destructive construct, and it will fall apart. It started out as a customs union for iron and coal to make the transfer of those commodities easier and cheaper. Okay, good idea. And if the EU is nothing but a vehicle to ease the travel of people across borders within that union and reduce duties within that union, fine, wonderful. But it's actually become an extra layer of government with an unbelievable number of regulations. Yes, of course, it's going to fall apart. In fact, most of the countries in the world are going to fall apart. Every country in Africa is an artificial construct put together in the boardrooms of Europe with no consideration whatsoever for the local people, their languages, their customs, their tribes. So most of these countries are going to blow up and fall apart. Sudan has already broken up into 2 countries. This should break up into several more. This is true of the Congo, Nigeria, every country in Africa, every country in the Middle East. Iraq isn't a real country. So we're going to see a lot of this in the future. Political chaos, and actually politics is at the root of all the problems that we have. Politics is about coercion. It's like Mao Tse-tung said, the power of government comes out of the barrel of a gun. And since just before World War I, governments, states around the world generally took 5, maybe 10% of the GDP of their country to maintain themselves and to maintain the people in government. The U.S. was more like 5% before 1913. It was just excise taxes and import duties. That's it. Now, the U.S. government takes on the order of 35, 40%. A lot of governments take 50, 60, 70%. So the whole world is built upon the artificial construct of the state. It's all going to fall apart. They've created tremendous distortions and misallocations of capital, and they'll be liquidated. It's happening now, actually. It's important to be diversified financially among different asset classes. Okay, that's understood. But a far bigger danger is to be diversified politically, because your big danger is not just the markets, and they're dangerous enough, but it's governments and what their laws and the people in the governments will do to you. So it's critical that you have capital outside of your native country, maybe 3 other countries. The ideal thing is to have several flags. Your residence is one place, your business is another place, your passport is a third place. This is critical today. I think people should consider this and act now, because we're moving into a time when we're going to have serious foreign exchange controls all across the world. Because with the money supply in countries being manipulated by their central banks, generally expanded radically, things get out of control. And governments never control themselves. They control their subjects. And one of the ways they do this is with foreign exchange controls, where they say you can no longer ship money out of the country. That's unpatriotic. So now you're trapped like a lobster in a trap if you don't already have your money abroad. So yeah, it's something that few people do. Perhaps it's because few people can do it. Most people don't have the assets. Shame on them if they don't to do that. But if you do have the assets, yes, you should diversify politically as well as financially today. Over 100 years ago, it was said by Rudolf Stirner, war is the health of the state. It's always been the major occupation of government and people that are in it. And we're building up to more and more of this type of thing. But the problem with governments owing money, it's not just that their tax burden's immense. It's not just that they're printing up money in such amounts that it's losing value rapidly, but the amount of debt in the world, both on the part of governments. If they're going to pay their debt, that ensures taxes are going to go even higher in the future to service their debt. And individuals in the U.S., the average person is grossly indebted. He owes student loan debt. He's got no flexibility whatsoever. He's like tied down like a plant at this point. The average American, the average Canadian is tied down with all this debt. And in the future, more and more, he's going to be tied down with more laws and regulations. This is very bad, because it used to be Western civilization represented freedom and individuality and the ability to move. This is all being washed away for many different reasons today. We're on a ship that's sinking, and you should move toward the lifeboat early. The average guy does not have a lot of capital today. Here's what he's got to do. He's got to significantly cut back his standard of living now, as opposed to waiting until things get really wild and woolly and it's out of control and your standard of living will be cut back for you. So cut back your standard of living as much as you possibly can and save capital. Now, the question is, what do you do with that capital? If you leave it with dollars, they're going to be inflated out of existence right now. Forget about the government numbers. I don't trust U.S. government numbers much more than I trust those from a South American country. So I suggest that with that money you save, you really should learn to speculate. Most people confuse that with gambling and get blown up as a result. Investing is getting harder and harder. So you should learn how to speculate. But along the way, I suggest you buy physical gold and physical silver with the money that you're saving now. Learn something about economic theory to go to college today. I mean, it's 4 years misallocation of time at best and wastage of money. If you want to progress in life, you have to produce more than you consume. That's obvious. Any squirrel knows that. To put away nuts for the winter, produce more than you consume and save the difference. And now the question is, well, how do I save it? We addressed that briefly now, but most people don't. They jam up their credit cards. They're in debt for everything. Frankly, they're going to get what they deserve, which is serfdom.